Every year, millions of people visit America's national parks, searching for adventure, beauty, and escape. But hidden far beyond the crowded trails are places most tourists never see. Restricted zones, sealed caves, forbidden areas surrounded by warning signs and unanswered questions. Some were closed after deadly accidents, others after strange discoveries that were quietly forgotten. And the deeper you look into these parks, the more unsettling the stories become. The sealed caverns below the canyon. The Grand Canyon is so massive that even today, large sections of it remain barely explored. Millions of tourists stand at the edge every year, looking down into the endless layers of rock, believing they are seeing everything the canyon has to offer. But hidden deep within the cliffs are caves the public is never allowed to enter. Some are sealed behind locked gates, others are missing from official maps entirely, and for more than a century, rumors have surrounded what may have once been discovered inside them. In the early 1900s, a strange newspaper story began spreading across the United States. According to the report, an explorer traveling through a remote part of the Grand Canyon claimed he had uncovered a hidden cave system buried high within the canyon walls. But this was not an ordinary cave. The article described narrow passageways leading into massive underground chambers filled with strange artifacts, carved statues and objects that supposedly resembled ancient Egyptian designs. The explorer claimed the tunnels stretched deep beneath the canyon itself, far beyond anything previously mapped. Then something even stranger happened. The story vanished almost overnight. No official expedition was ever publicly confirmed. No evidence was released. And despite the enormous claims, the location described in the report was never shared with the public. Many people dismissed the story as a hoax, but others noticed something unusual. The area connected to the alleged discovery eventually became heavily restricted. Even today, certain sections of the canyon are completely off limits to visitors. Park officials explain that the restrictions exist because of dangerous terrain, unstable rock formations, and the risk of fatal falls. And to be fair, the Grand Canyon is extremely dangerous. People disappear there every year. Experienced hikers have died after becoming trapped in remote areas with no access to water or rescue. But the mystery surrounding the caves never fully disappeared. Over the years, explorers and conspiracy researchers have searched for hidden entrances supposedly buried somewhere within the canyon walls. Some claim strange openings can still be spotted from certain areas using long-range cameras. Others believe the cave system was intentionally concealed after its discovery drew too much attention. There is no verified proof that the underground chambers ever existed, but that has not stopped people from searching, because few things create more curiosity than a place people are forbidden to enter. And while the Grand Canyon hides its mysteries underground, the next restricted area is dangerous for an entirely different reason. In Yellowstone, the ground itself can become a death trap. The place where the earth boils below your feet. From a distance, Yellowstone looks almost unreal. Bright blue pools, thick clouds of steam rising from the ground, endless forests surrounding one of the most famous national parks in America. Millions of tourists visit every year believing the greatest danger is getting too close to a wild animal. But hidden beyond the wooden walkways are areas so dangerous that a single wrong step can become fatal within seconds. Because underneath Yellowstone lies one of the largest volcanic systems on Earth. In some restricted sections of the park, the ground is nothing more than a thin crust covering boiling water and acidic mud. The surface may appear solid, but beneath it, temperatures can rise high enough to melt skin almost instantly. Park rangers constantly warn visitors never to leave designated trails. Yet every year people ignore the warnings. Some never come back. One of the most disturbing incidents happened in 2016. A man entered a restricted thermal area near Norris Geyser Basin with his sister. According to reports, they were searching for a place to soak in the hot springs away from public areas. But somewhere inside the restricted zone, he slipped. Witnesses later said he fell directly into one of Yellowstone's superheated thermal pools. Rescue teams attempted to recover the body the following day, but the conditions inside the spring were so extreme that almost nothing remained. The heat and acidity had dissolved nearly everything overnight. The story spread across the internet quickly, not only because of how horrifying the death was, but because it reminded people how terrifying Yellowstone truly is beneath its beautiful surface. And there are still parts of the park tourists are never allowed to access. Some regions remain closed because the terrain is considered too unstable. In certain locations, the ground shifts constantly as geothermal pressure changes beneath the surface. Rangers have described areas where the earth sounds hollow underfoot, places where steam escapes through cracks without warning. Some visitors have even claimed they heard strange noises coming from beneath the ground itself. Low rumbling sounds, metallic echoes, deep vibrations moving underneath the earth. Most scientists believe these sounds are natural results of geothermal activity, but inside Yellowstone, even normal explanations feel unsettling, because the park does not feel dead. It feels active, alive, as if something enormous is constantly moving below the surface where nobody can see it. And while Yellowstone's restricted zones are terrifying in the open air, the next location becomes far worse once the light disappears completely. Beneath Kentucky, there are tunnels that even experienced explorers refuse to enter. The passages that were never fully mapped. Beneath the forests of Kentucky lies the largest cave system ever discovered on Earth. Mammoth Cave stretches for hundreds of miles underground, twisting through darkness in ways no one fully understands. Even after decades of exploration, new passages continue to be found, and some areas remain completely sealed from the public. Tourists visiting Mammoth Cave only see a carefully controlled portion of the system. Lit pathways guide people through massive chambers and narrow tunnels, while park rangers lead tours through areas considered safe. But beyond those routes are sections that almost nobody is allowed to enter, places where the cave becomes far more dangerous and far more unpredictable. In the early 1940s, experienced cave explorers began mapping newly discovered tunnels deep inside Mammoth Cave. Some of the passageways were so narrow, explorers had to crawl for hours through solid darkness just to continue forward. Others opened into enormous underground chambers, untouched by sunlight for thousands of years. But the deeper they traveled, the stranger the conditions became. Some tunnels suddenly ended in unstable pits. Others contained dangerously low oxygen levels capable of causing unconsciousness without warning. Explorers described hearing distant echoes deep within sections of the cave where no other people should have been. Then came the disappearances. Over the years, multiple people became lost inside Mammoth Cave. Some were eventually rescued after wandering through the darkness for days. Others were found injured, dehydrated, or mentally broken after becoming trapped underground with no sense of direction or time. But a few incidents remain deeply unsettling even today. One experienced explorer reportedly vanished while attempting to navigate a restricted section of the cave system during a private expedition. According to local accounts, members of the group later claimed he separated from the others after insisting he had discovered an unexplored passage leading deeper underground. He never returned. Search teams spent days combing nearby tunnels. But in a cave system this large, finding someone can become nearly impossible. Mammoth Cave contains hundreds of miles of overlapping passages, hidden drops, flooded corridors, and dead ends capable of trapping even experienced explorers forever. Eventually, parts of the surrounding area were permanently restricted. Officially, the closures exist because of safety concerns. Falling rock, flooding, unstable terrain, and all of those dangers are very real. Inside Mammoth Cave, complete darkness can erase a person's sense of direction within minutes. One wrong turn can separate someone from the nearest exit by miles. But the restrictions only fueled more speculation. Some believe there are still undiscovered sections hidden beyond the sealed tunnels. Others think parts of the cave were closed after explorers found areas considered too dangerous to publicly access. Whatever the truth may be, Mammoth Cave remains one of the few places in America where a person could disappear underground and never be seen again. And somehow the final restricted area on this list feels even more isolated. Because deep inside the Florida Everglades, there are places where rescue may never arrive at all. The islands where people vanish without a trace. The Florida Everglades are unlike any other place in America. Endless wetlands stretch across the horizon. Thick mangroves block the sunlight. Narrow waterways twist through miles of silent swamp where visibility disappears within seconds. And hidden deep inside the Everglades are restricted regions so isolated that some people who entered them were never seen again. To most tourists, the Everglades seem peaceful during the daytime. Airboats glide through shallow water, while visitors photograph birds and alligators from safe distances. But beyond the guided routes lies a completely different world, a world that becomes dangerous very quickly. The deeper sections of the park are extremely difficult to navigate. Many areas have no roads, no cell service, and no reliable landmarks. At night, the wetlands become almost completely silent, except for insects moving through the darkness and unseen animals slipping beneath the water. Even experienced hunters and fishermen have disappeared there. In 1973, reports emerged about a man who vanished while exploring a remote section of mangrove islands deep inside the park. According to local accounts, he had traveled into a restricted region known for dangerous conditions and unpredictable waterways. Friends expected him to return within hours. He never did. Search teams later found parts of his equipment abandoned near the shoreline, but there were no signs of a struggle, no footprints leading away from the area, no clear evidence explaining what happened after he entered the swamp. And stories like this are not uncommon in the Everglades. Over the years, multiple people have vanished inside remote sections of the park. Some boats were discovered drifting empty through the waterways. Others were found stranded near islands covered in thick vegetation where visibility was almost non-existent. Rangers warn visitors that conditions inside restricted areas can become deadly without warning. Water levels shift constantly. Storms can flood entire sections overnight. Dangerous wildlife moves through the wetlands unseen, and once someone becomes lost in the maze of mangroves, finding a way back can become nearly impossible. But some of the strangest stories involve sounds. People exploring remote parts of the Everglades have described hearing distant voices echoing across the water late at night. Others reported lights moving through areas where nobody should have been. A few even claimed they saw abandoned structures hidden deep within the swamp before being unable to locate them again. Most of these stories have never been verified, but perhaps that is what makes the Everglades so unsettling. The swamp hides everything. Sound disappears. Trails vanish. Entire islands seem swallowed by the landscape itself, and somewhere beyond the safe tourist routes are places so isolated that if something happened there, nobody may ever truly know the full story. Because some areas of America's national parks are not just dangerous, they feel completely cut off from the rest of the world. America's national parks are meant to protect some of the most beautiful places on Earth, but hidden beyond the trails and tourist maps are areas filled with unanswered questions, strange disappearances, and dangers most visitors never see. And the unsettling part is this: there are still countless restricted places across the country the public knows almost nothing about. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe and let me know which mystery disturbed you the most, because there are many more hidden stories still waiting to be uncovered.